Survivors of the families of those who lost their lives during the Marikana massacre will today gather to remember one of the most violent days and periods in a democratic South Africa. 34 Lonmin miners were shot and killed by police on this day 10 years ago. They were demanding improved pay and better working conditions. Our reporter Malungelo Booi joins us live from Marikana ahead of today's commemoration events that are taking place in the northwest mining town. And Malu, it's that copy where you're standing that has so much significance in what happened this day 10 years ago.
That's right, Michelle. In fact, it is on this copy where mine workers would actually gather on the day when when that killing actually took place on this day 10 years ago. Workers would gather here, Michelle, in the morning and come and protest, but also on these fields that you're actually seeing. It was on this day where 34 of them were actually killed, as you've rightfully indicated. They were protesting, demanding improved pay and better working conditions. And of course, their families will then, and those who survived, most importantly, Michelle, will then gather here today really to remember this day, to also reflect on exactly what this day means to them, Michelle. And of course, it's going to be the first time in 2 years since they gather here, because, you know, we've also had the coronavirus, which has essentially stopped, you know, the massive gatherings. But already what you can see, Michelle, is that the preparations, the marquee is already here, and we're expecting Joseph Matunja essentially to be addressing those hundreds of mine workers, those mine workers really that will be gathering here. But we also know that the owners of Sibanye Stillwater, or the management, are also in the program. That's the company, Michelle, that has since taken over Lonmin, and you can see behind us, those are the operations of Sibanye Stillwater. Sibanye Stillwater. It used to be Lonmin, Michelle, at the time. But there's so many stories, Michelle, when you interact with people who were part of the strike on that day, but people who are still here. And one of the things that people will complain about, Michelle, is that they have been calling for this day to be a national holiday, but also, Michelle, to have this area, to have a monument erected. 10 years on, those have still not happened.
I suppose, 10 years on, there are other questions still about just how much has changed in the lives of the families left behind. Those 34 mine workers were fighting for better pay, better working conditions, ultimately for them and their families. How much has changed in their lives insofar as those payouts are concerned? We understand still a vast majority of those payouts are yet to be finalized. And then, of course, the injured workers, you know, what's become of them these past 10 years?
Michelle, I remember talking to one of the workers who was part of the strike. I spoke to this person about, a year ago, and he still had a bullet that's lodged in his head, and he is literally battling, Michelle. His life has been turned upside down, and of course, one of the things that he says he wants was that he's longing for justice. And that's one of the things that you hear from many of the people who survived that incident, but also the widows of those who were killed. In fact, about a week ago, I was talking to the widow of one of the mine workers, saying that she's also longing for an apology from President Cyril Ramaphosa. Remember, President Cyril Ramaphosa was implicated in the Falam Commission of Inquiry, and one of the things that the mine workers are saying is that had he not sent those emails to authorities at the time, perhaps those mine workers would have not actually been killed. So they're saying that they want the president to actually apologize. And some people will say there's been really little change that they've seen since the incident. And of course, we know that Michelle, that Sibanye has, in fact, assisted some of these families to building houses for them, but also in assisting the children of those who died by taking them to school. But also some people are saying that not every family is actually receiving that support, and so that's why then some people are saying, Michelle, not much has essentially changed for them.
A bitter pill to swallow for those families on this day 10 years later. Malungelo Booi, live to us there from Marikana.